You're listening to episode number 72 of Design Your Success podcast. Today we have an amazing guest. She is widely known as the Fly Coach, and you're going to hear what Fly stands for by the time this episode is over. Our guest is a best-selling author. She's a thought leader and a business development coach. Now, when she responded to her calling to empower and educate women, she had a deliberate intention to promote self-love and economic empowerment. She has a respectable social media presence where she has reached an audience of over 500,000 people. You are going to enjoy today's episode, so let's get to it.
Inspiring and informative, the Design Your Success podcast, brought to you by lbsuccess.com. This is your weekly show that leaves you motivated and ready to take action so you can create the life and business you desire. Now, here is your host, Nancy Gathesha.
Our guest today is the owner of Defining Your Destiny, and she's also the founder of the Journey to Self-Love Challenge, Latoya Johnson. Welcome to the call.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Right. We're delighted about today's topic. Let's just go right into it and tell us, what exactly is self-love?
That's a great question. Well, I believe that self-love essentially is a person knowing and understanding first who they are and from which they come, okay? Because you can't really love something that you don't know. Mm-hmm. So really getting to know yourself and embracing who you are authentically, and doing that unapologetically, meaning, you don't have to apologize to anyone for who you really are to the core. That, to me, is what true self-love is.
Right. So why are you an ambassador for self-love? What motivated you?
Yeah, well, what motivated me was the fact that I knew that there were so many women who were in the same place as I was emotionally and kind of spiritually, going through the motions with the different unsuccessful relationships and just kind of not finding their purpose and their destiny. And then even if they did find it, not having the audacity to act on it and to move in that direction. And so it really kind of something that I got kind of dropped into. I mean, I was always conscious of that, but I really didn't know what I was supposed to do until I was trained and mentored by Les Brown, and I went to one of our trainings, and he actually had us get together and hold hands. I tell this story all the time about how he creates an experience for you. Mm-hmm. And he had us get together and hold hands, and he said to us these words. He said, "You have a voice. There are people who will only respond to you." He said, when I speak, or when Lisa Nichols speaks, he said, they will hear us with their ears. But when you speak, they will hear you with their hearts. Lives will never be the same again, that they will be transformed because of you. It was beautiful, and every time I say it, I get chills. But at that moment, that let me know that not necessarily that the self-love was the direction, but that there was a greater call for my life, and it led me to that journey of self-love.
Mm-hmm. Les Brown so happens to be one of my favorite motivational speakers, and he's got this quote about, somebody else's opinion does not have to become your reality.
That's right.
And his story is so inspiring. I actually got a chance to hear him here in Frankfurt. So you're a blessed lady if you were mentored and trained by him. Wow.
Yes.
And we're going to benefit from that expertise today. So self-love, you said that you didn't actually get into that journey until you were trained by him. What age bracket were you, by the time you were getting trained?
Well, this was just in 2014. So after that training, within 30 days, I was still wrestling with it, whether I wanted to create a platform, because I've never been a person who really likes the spotlight, I don't have to be seen and heard all the time. So it was something I was kind of wrestling with, but I did start my business page. And within 30 days, I had over 2,000 people on the page. Subsequently, after that, I started the Journey to Self-Love Challenge. I actually wrote a challenge. It's just a 30-day challenge. And I started that, and it just got this great momentum behind it, Nancy. It was amazing. And I coined it the Journey of 10,000 Women. Of course, at the time, I didn't have any women in the community. I started as a private community on Facebook. Within 60 days, there were over 10,000 women in that community, and they were waiting for the challenge. They were all excited. They were waiting to take this journey to self-love with me, and they didn't know who I was.
Okay, clearly you struck something that there was a need because, for 10,000 women to show up within 30 days, besides you answering to that call, which is so beautiful, when we answer to that, the purpose and that divine calling that we have, then the people, like you said, who need to hear that message, then I believe that God brings them our paths and they, they hear you answer to that call and they're there as well. So obviously, self-love is something that women can identify with. What would you say is one of the reasons why we women, we may struggle with or why we need support with self-love? Why do you think so many women answered to that call for the challenge?
I believe it's because we, being nurturers and just being others, get we get weighed down and we become burned out, and we see that it doesn't work to say yes when you really want to say no. It doesn't work when you constantly put everybody else before you. It doesn't work when you're taking care of other people's issues and other people and you haven't taken care of yourself. Eventually it's going to catch up with you. It's going to show on your face. It's going to, people will be able to hear it in your voice. It's going to show in sleeplessness, and you're going to feel inadequate because really you're doing yourself a disservice. I believe that there was an awakening and that there is a thirst amongst women to be better to themselves, to be more loving and compassionate and forgiving. All the things that we give so freely to other people, I believe that we long for that ourselves, and who else to give it to us and to provide it but ourselves.
Oh, I love the way you said that when we're natural as women, we do tend to give, taking care of the family, of the husband, and you're taking care of a business, and you're the neighbor. We have all these roles. We master them pretty well. But as you said, if you're giving it all the time to other people and not getting it, then there's going to be a huge disconnect and so a burnout. Latoya, besides, the fact that we're always giving, I'm going to refer to your book here. Do you feel that there is a connection between loving ourselves and our childhood, because maybe there's no good image of what that looks like?
Absolutely. That's definitely true, Nancy. I believe for me, growing up in foster care and just having somewhat of an unstable childhood, it did have an effect on me in that way, because I believe that your identity, it comes from your parents. And I don't know who my father is. And I wasn't raised by my mother. So, investment is a measure of value. So investing time with yourself and really speaking loving words to yourself, encouraging yourself, all those things, it's hard for you to do that because you don't really know what your worth is, because you never really genuinely had those people, those nurturers in your life to really speak those things over you. So I think that is key. And then on the flip side, although I've never had anyone to say those things to me, I've really never had anyone outside of being teased at school and that sort of thing. But when I was in foster care, I was treated pretty well. But there's no place like home. Home being where your roots are, where the genuine love is. And that's the part that I was missing. But I also realized that there's a group of women who have been beaten down by work. From those people who were supposed to protect them and love them the most, and not just in their childhood, but in their marriages and so many different aspects of life. And so this is another thing that Les Brown says. He says that every word, every derogatory word, it has to be offset by 16 positive words or phrases. Wow. And so think about all of those women have just been told all their life that you're ugly, you're nothing, you're stupid, you never do anything but just like your mom or your dad. I mean, just ugly things. It's so much to undo that, and I don't think that that's something people realize.
Oh, this is so good. You said, besides, the fact that our childhood, sometimes either those people are not there or, I like the way that you pointed back to, sometimes they may have actually had that natural family, but then those very people who were supposed to be protecting them and nurturing them and loving them ended up doing the most harm, where they have to really undo it for years, and we may struggle with that. Now, let's pick up on something that you just said, about, let me see, I lost my train of thought here. 1 second. Oh, I'm just so excited. Let me see. Yes, exactly. The words that we hear, that we need 16 positive words to erase one negative one. Let's talk about self-love and relationships. By the way, your book, listeners, if you need to get Latoya's book, but we'll talk about that later on. You talk about self-love and relationships. Now, the fact that you said a lot of women that we've had those words, you're ugly, you're fat, you'll never amount to anything. And then we start believing those lies. Now, what about then when we didn't hear those words in childhood, but as a grown-up woman, maybe your partner, recently I was, reading this, I don't read those magazines anymore, Cosmopolitan and stuff like that, because I don't like the way they, it's just one big conspiracy to make women feel like we're not enough. But I happened to be at the gym and, I was, looking through and I thought, oh, let's see what's in there. And there was two very strong women, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Strong women as far as, society things. One is a Latin American, I wouldn't say the name, but she's a Latin American, very beautiful and just a gorgeous woman. But she's with this partner who doesn't like her body. And so the article was like she's thinking about changing her body because the partner says he doesn't like that. What can you tell us about self-love and our partners, hearing from people who are supposed to love us that we're not good enough,
Yeah. It's very tricky. I think that body image is one thing that a lot of women struggle with, and wanting to please the person who you're with. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, someone that you really love, because, in order to talk about this self-love thing, we have to talk about what love really means. So when you break it down, to me, if I love someone, I want to see them at their best. I want to see them grow. I have compassion for them. When they're hurting, I'm hurting. When they feel good, I feel good. When they celebrate, I celebrate, right? I want to protect them.
Right.
I want to, invest in them. And so when you look at those definitions of what love really is at its core, and you think about how people have expectations of you that defy the meaning of love, it's something that we really have to put in perspective. Because we will protect other people and their feelings before we would our own. And so when you look at the definition, you say, okay, if this is what love is, and this is what this person wants me to do, this is for their selfishness, is that really love?
So what would you advise then a woman? Maybe somebody's listening right now and they're going through that kind of situation. What would you advise a woman right now who might be going through a situation? She knows her partner loves her, he says he loves her, but yet, he could be telling her, baby, I'd be more happy if you lost some more weight, or, I'd be happy if you were fairer, or if you wouldn't wear your hair this way. And it's conflicting with how she feels. What would you advise a woman like that?
Well, I never tell anyone to leave a partner or anything like that, but I would say to really think deeply about the direction of that relationship. And I would really say to look at the person's actions more than you do their words, because action speaks louder than words. And if someone is not supportive of you, if they're saying things that breaking you down and saying things that are reducing your confidence, is that really love? I would just ask those questions. I wouldn't tell them to do anything except to take inventory over that relationship. And then, because I believe that women, and we're intelligent, we're empowered to make our own decisions, that we don't need advice step by step what to do with other people. What you want to do is you want to use critical thinking. You want to think with your head and not always with your heart. That's what I would ask her to do. And then make the best decision that is suitable for her and the direction that she sees her life going in, based off of the love that she has for herself.
What about the element of, for example, again, coming back to this, this situation where the partner is saying this and this. What about, what would be a healthy, self-loving way to communicate? Because sometimes the partner might not even realize that what they're saying is, hurting this partner, or, it's not really helpful. Communication. Let's talk about communication and self-love. How can we women stand up and speak what we feel and what we need without feeling like you say in your book that a fly woman she's ready to help others and she's not afraid to ask for help. And I think sometimes also communication, the way you communicate to somebody, how would you advise us or listeners to apply self-love and communication?
Yes, that's a good point, because communication is something I'm very passionate about. And this is something that I'm still learning too. I would say that to get your point across, you don't always have to be abrasive. You could say things gently and in love, You could say it, with a mellow tone. You could write it. You could be vulnerable. It's a time and a place for everything. If it's someone that you love, you should be able to be all of those things. You should be able to be gentle. You should be able to be vulnerable. You should be able to say, you know what? It really hurts me when you say that you don't like the way I look. Right? I mean, if I'm not healthy, that's one thing. I'm open to what your feedback is. But if you're just critiquing me just for your own selfishness because you want to walk around with a trophy on your arm, then I don't think that that's coming from the most loving and wholesome place within you. So I just would say kind of be gentle, because a lot of men, even though they come across strong, they're really sensitive.
Right.
And they can be the ones that's giving out dishing out the worst dirt and the most foul language. But as soon as we come back with the same thing, they shut down and they'll say that we're the ones that are aggressive, right?
That's true.
We have to kind of tap into our femininity and just be a little more gentle in our tone, because I know sometimes we can be a little abrasive because we feel like we're the women, so if we're not firm, it's possible.
Right. That's good. I like the tip on communicating the point across without being more aggressive. And that it's part of self-love, standing up for yourself, as you say in your book. Now tell us, Latoya, what is a fly woman? I know what a fly woman is. I've read your book. But listeners, what is a fly woman?
So a fly woman, first of all, FLY is an acronym. It stands for First Love Yourself. And a fly woman is a woman who has, taken possession of her feminine authority. As a woman who loves herself, who treats herself well, who knows boundaries and respects them for herself and the people around them. She's a woman who can stand up for herself. She's a woman who speaks loving language over herself into those people that she loves. She's a woman who takes time for herself and cares for herself. She's a woman who takes pride in her appearance. She understands that value is a measure of worth and that she invests in herself. And the most important thing is that she is forgiving to herself, because we've all made mistakes. And so we can't really move on if we don't forgive ourselves. And I think that's one thing that a lot of women struggle with. So I put that finally into the definition of what a fly woman is. She loves herself, and she's on this journey, because it is a journey. It's not necessarily a destination. It's a place that we will travel as long as we live. There'll always be challenges and obstacles and different changes of life that'll come, into our sphere that we have to readjust. But we'll always be on that journey of being fly, a woman who first she loves herself.
I like the way you said, she forgives herself, because, like the book of wisdom, the Bible says we're supposed to forgive others, as we're forgiven. And sometimes we can be the most hard with ourselves. Like some of the things we tell ourselves, even in the conversations, like, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so fat, how could I forget that? There are things that we would never say to somebody else. Yeah. And when we realize that, or when we do something and it's not the way, maybe you do something, instead of saying, I'm so stupid, how could I do that? That a woman who loves herself will be gentle and forgive herself, and it's okay. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, you help women to redirect their lives by adapting new thoughts, habits, and behaviors so that they can live a more fulfilled life. What is the connection, Latoya, between self-love, what you so brilliantly help other women do, and economic empowerment?
That's a good one. Okay, Nancy, this one goes, okay?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because so many women, we come from a thought process that tells us that if we want what's best for us, that we're somehow selfish or narcissistic, or that we don't deserve that, or that we're materialistic if we want the best of the best, if we want to be treated like royalty, if we want to be able to take care of ourselves and be empowered financially. There's something wrong with that. But that is in the psyche of so many women. And so just like your children, you want to see your children live the absolute best life possible. You don't want to see them eating, food that isn't healthy. You don't want to see them living in squalor. You don't want to see them suffering from disease. In order to take back those areas of our lives, we have to be financially empowered. As much as we would like to believe that money isn't everything, it probably isn't. But guess what? If you have it, you're better off. That's just fact. And so with us as women, I think that because of the stories that we've been told and because of the indoctrination that's been forced into our belief system about money, we have to change that money is not evil, right?
Yes.
It's not evil. It's what we do with it. And that, it's okay to want to be financially secure. It's okay to want to be wealthy. It talks about it in the Bible, but it's so ingrained in us, this poverty mindset, that we have to undo it, that we don't deserve this. We don't deserve to drive this, or we don't deserve to live here. Or if you want to live here or drive this or have this much money in the bank, then you must be vain or you must be materialistic. Wrong. So when you love yourself and you say, you know what, I do deserve the best. Why? Because I'm willing to go out here and work for it. Why? Because I'm willing to lift up another sister or brother and bring with me. Why? Because my community has suffered enough. I've suffered enough. My people have suffered enough. And it's time for a change. And I love myself and I love my community enough to do something about it. That's love that we're talking about. It goes to the core, but it has to be reconditioned in our mentality.
That's good. You said I love myself and I love my sisters, my brothers, and want to make a change. Let's just talk about that a little bit. It's like an elephant in the room. As not only just African American women, black women, but basically there is this kind of notion that if a woman becomes, well, not too successful, but if she becomes successful and, maybe she's driving a particular car, she's earning a certain amount of money, that she'll intimidate men. I know from where I'm from Africa, there is that culture of you don't want to make your man, look like he earns less than you or like you're better off than him. So there's that little just play small, because especially if you're single, if you go out and get what you want, then you're going to intimidate men and you're going to be single for the rest of your life. Let's talk about that and self-love. What's your take?
Yes, I believe that is partially true, the fact that some men are intimidated, but I think that it's because the self-love conversation needs to happen all across the board. I think that sometimes in the patriarchy system, right, that we've been taught that the man leads, but it's kind of like we've been taught to look at the man as a paycheck, right? Because his worth is not all based on what type of money he brings home. Like, we need a man. Like, I need a man for more than just money. I need him for companionship. I need him for support. It's just so many other things that he brings value to our lives. And I think that Oprah Winfrey is a great testament to that, because there's no way that Stedman would ever make more than she does. But if I were to be like a fly on the wall, I bet that Oprah is not a person who is trying to demean her man at home. She doesn't use her money to make him feel less than, because there is a fine line between a woman who's confident and independent. But she says, you know what? If you make 30 and I make 50, okay, we make 80. It's not you making 30, I make 50, I'm more powerful than you. No, we make 80 now. Look at us. Look what we can do.
That's good.
Right? And so it's about having that attitude that this is a unit and that both of us have things that we bring to the table. And besides the money, there are certain things that a man brings to the table that a woman just can't bring it no matter how hard she tries, because she's not a man. And vice versa. There's certain things that a man needs. The man needs our feminine energy. There's no way that he can get that from anybody else other than a woman. So we both of us bring attributes. We're both priceless. But we have to learn to value one another again and respect one another's differences, and know that you're not just the paycheck that you bring into the house. You're more than that to me. You're a king because of who you are, because of how you stand upright in the time of trial, how you protect, how you uplift, how you support. And that's what you should respect about the man. You respect the position, not necessarily the financial contribution.
That is so good. Gentlemen who are listening to this episode, that is a nugget right there. And I like the way you said, Latoya, that self-love, it's not just about the women, it's for the men too, because society is also just as guilty of making men, reduce their value basically to the car they drive and the amount of money they make, And I love how you've just said that, how you've just brought it back to what it's all about. And again, going back to your book, you say, self-love, it's not just also about the outward. forward, because that can change, Actually, let's talk about that some.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love and, again, relationships, as far as, you talk about in your book when you were younger, and how you got that balance about your self-worth, and it's not all external. Share with us a little bit about that. We women, there's always this pressure to look younger and to have these trim bodies, and life happens and nature happens, and we might not be looking like we did in our 20s. What are some tips you can share with us as far as maintaining that self-worth and that confidence and that self-esteem despite the outside changing?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really great question. And I would say be conscious of what you identify with, right? Many women, they identify very heavily with their outer appearance. Like that defines them. And while your outer appearance, your outer beauty is a part of who you are, if you start to see that it's consuming you, that it's beginning to define you, you know that you have some issues that need to be dealt with. Right? Because what we want to hold on to and identify with is the core. It's always at the core. It's just like a piece of fruit. You're going to eat the fruit, the outside of the fruit is going to be gone eventually, right? It looks all pretty, the pear or the peach looks all pretty on the outside. Right. But once you with that, all you have is the core. That's what's left. And you can plant that and you can grow even more beauty. So why it's so important to be attached to and identified with the inner beauty first and foremost. And that should take precedence off of the outside, because that inner beauty is something that you can spread all around to children, to elderly, to men, to women, to everybody. And you can leave a little bit of beauty on everyone else. But that's not beauty. Once you're gone and your body is no longer here, only thing that's going to live on is the beauty that you spread in the world and into the atmosphere. And that's what's at the core.
That's good. Thank you. So if I understood you correctly, this notion that's wrong, that when we assume that our self-worth comes from our outside, from our looks, and then men also have this false impression that their value or their self-worth comes from material, from how much they have and what they drive, just stuff basically. So for somebody who is listening to this and she's like, okay, fine, Latoya, that sounds all good. I don't know where to start with self-love. What's your best tip to start to practice it consciously?
Yes. What I would say is to first get a copy of my book.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the first step, is to get a copy of the book. The second thing I would say is to just start to journal. That's really important. Start to get your inner thoughts out. And when I say that, I mean, when you journal, you're going to automatically start to write things that are true. It helps you to be honest about who you are, about where you want to go, about what it is that you love and don't love about your life, or about the direction of your life, about the people who are in your life. So the first step to self-love, I would say, is to start to be honest about who you are, what you like, what you don't like, where you're going, where you've been, have you been accountable, have you been forgiven. Just start to purge. And you can do that best in journaling because it's private. Or you can do it in prayer. But just go in first. The love lives within. Get all of the other stuff out, all the nuances, all the distractions, all the lies. Once you start to purge that stuff every day, just journaling your feelings, your thoughts, your ambitions, your sentiments, you will begin to see who you really are. And then you have to make the conscious decision to be who you are every single day, unapologetically. And that's the difficult part. Why? It's because there's so many different spirits that will come to attack you. There's so many different distractions that will come up. Life will happen. And this world as a whole is so pretentious. Every day, awareness and consciousness. And that's how you begin to be who you are and then start to love who you are. Those are really the first steps.
Brilliant. Probably another reason why we identify with what you're doing and how you're helping people and empowering them. And you said in the beginning, it's not about being selfish. And in your book too, you define that it's not about, looking like you're all about yourself. I mean, the Bible says love others as you love yourself. So if we can't love ourselves first, then we cannot be able to love others, because we're trying to give out of an empty cup, out of something that is dysfunctional. So what you're doing is really, really amazing, love, being a love ambassador. Now, as we come towards the end of this interview, we've talked about, the life in your book, and as far as the personal side is concerned, let's talk just briefly about the business. The women you work with, what do you help us do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I help women do is like to understand that, investment is a measure of value, right? And so as they begin to learn who they are and love who they are, they start to see things more clearly. They start to see, you know what, I really am not an employee. I was not just born to pay bills and go to work and wake up and do that all over again, or to build someone else's legacy, and then I don't have anything left for my children. I wasn't born to just go to a job and, work just enough so that I don't, they don't fire me, and they give me just enough so that I don't quit. That I'm born for more than that I have a purpose, and that I have gifts and skills and talents that I can bring to the marketplace, and that I can build wealth from. And so what I do is I help the women to first get clarity from A to Z, right? All the way to the point of discovering who they are, loving themselves, and saying, okay, what's next for me? What does my destiny entail? And how can I monetize my gifts and skills and talents so that I don't have to be an employee for the rest of my life?
What about somebody who is listening? She's like, but I'm happy being an employee. Because obviously we can't all be, business people. What about somebody who might actually be, they're an employee and they like it and they're happy with that? How can somebody like that benefit from working with you?
Well, in that aspect, I believe that there's always more. And it's not necessarily in the realm of being an entrepreneur. But the thing is, have you become complacent with what you're doing? And if you have, then why? And how can we get you to stretch outside of your comfort zone? Because sometimes you may be happy with something, but you know that you are kind of stifled sometimes, and that being stifled and not doing anything about it, to me, that's a sign of a lack of self-love. Because why wouldn't you want to push yourself to be your best? Why wouldn't you want to see what all you have to offer the world? Whether it might just be a hobby that can bring love and joy to other people. There's just so many different depths of finding out what your destiny holds. And it may not have to do with entrepreneurship, like you said, but it may have to do with someone encouraging you to look deeper into what your real purpose is.
Oh, that's brilliant. Self-love spills into every area. So even if somebody's listening right now and they're not into business, they can benefit from working with you as far as living a fulfilled life. So thank you for that answer. Latoya, what is one life or business principle that you live by?
A life or business principle I live by, and I would suggest, would be to respect the process. And when I say that, I mean respect the process of anything that life brings, because life is just like the seasons. It always changes. Right. But we can't rush that. There's no business that leaves have fallen off the trees in May. that should be over, right? We can't rush the process. So whether it's the process of grieving, whether it's the process of finding and, becoming a wife, whether it's the process of building a business or starting a family, whatever it is, do what is supposed to be done in that moment. Don't live in the next moment. Just be present and let the process unfold. Give it the utmost respect, and that will bring so much peace to your life.
Oh, that's good. Respect the process, because one thing's to happen yesterday, like this, what you mentioned earlier about it takes 16 positive words to rewrite a negative one. And sometimes, we're like, okay, I'm going to read Latoya's book, and after I read it, I'm going to be the self-love guru. It takes time to, just rewriting basically the programs in our minds and new habits and new thoughts. So thank you for sharing that. Respect the process. Right. We're coming to the end now. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is knowing what it is that you want to do, knowing what it is that you are destined to do, and consciously and strategically working toward that in spite of the obstacles and what might look like failure. That's what my definition of success is.
Brilliant. In spite of obstacles and failure. That's really good. Alrighty. What's next, Latoya? What are you up to now?
Okay. Well, right now I am promoting my book. It will be featured in two Department of Correction centers here in Virginia, and the goal is to get it in all of the Department of Correction libraries. And I'm going to be speaking at two graduations for two groups of women that are going to be released in May. So that's exciting. Of course, I have more speaking engagements, and I'm always accepting new clients after June. Every June, I have, my second mastermind. So I'm also looking at doing an anthology, but that's kind of in the air. And then also, lastly, I'm going to be putting together a retreat for my community, the Journey to Self-Love Challenge community.
That's great. Alrighty, well, we've come to the end. I mean, this conversation, we could talk about your book again, but then I'll have a link in the show notes for where people can get it. I really enjoyed it, and I like the fact that you share your story, and people can identify with stories, so it's not just some theory, it's something that you can see, and you're living that. You're not living like a victim role. You're clearly living a victor, overcoming whatever setbacks, whatever challenges, and then inspiring other people and empowering them to do the same. So that's really great. Latoya, where can we connect with you best? Social media or your website?
Yes, the best place to connect with me is either on Facebook. My handle is @FlyLatoya, or you can come join my community, which I would love to have you there, which is Journey to Self-Love Challenge. Or, of course, as you know, we have the business community, which is called the Fly Business Sisterhood.
Which is where I connected with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, okay. But from those three, where would that be?
I would say the self-love community.
Okay. Well, we've come to the end. Thank you so very much for sharing your expertise on self-love and how that affects, not only our relationships, but also our businesses.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Latoya. God bless you.
Take care.
For more inspiration and the resources mentioned on this show, visit www.lbsuccess.com today.